You know that moment when your entire life changes in the span of a few seconds? For me, it happened while my wife was in the shower. One minute, I was scrolling through her phone, trying to convince myself I was just being paranoid. And the next minute, I was staring at messages that proved my wife wasn't just lying to me. She was having an affair with a married coworker. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. But instead of screaming, instead of confronting them right away, I decided to do something much worse. I decided to expose them in front of everyone. Before we dive into this story, if you enjoy intense revenge stories like this one, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. These stories take hours to bring to life, and your support helps the channel grow. Now let's get into the moment my entire marriage fell apart, and how I made sure the truth destroyed theirs too. The perfect marriage that wasn't. For the first 5 years of my marriage, I genuinely believed I had it good. My wife and I weren't one of those couples that constantly posted about how perfect everything was on social media. We were just normal. We had our ups and downs, arguments about bills, arguments about chores, arguments about whose turn it was to cook dinner. But we always talked things out, or at least I thought we did. We lived in a modest apartment about 20 minutes outside the city. Nothing fancy, but it was comfortable, a place that felt like home. My wife worked at a large retail store not far from where we lived. She usually worked evening shifts. I worked a typical office job. Most nights, she got home around 9:30 or 10. We'd eat something small, watch TV, maybe talk about our days. Nothing extraordinary, just life. And honestly, I loved it. We didn't have kids yet, but we talked about it often. We were saving money, planning the future, talking about buying a house someday. Looking back now, I realized something important. When you're happy, you don't look for problems. And that's exactly why I missed the warning signs. At first, the changes were subtle. She started coming home later than usual. Not drastically late, just late enough to notice. Maybe 10:30, sometimes 11. When I asked about it, she'd shrug. Busy shift. Inventory night. Manager needed help closing. And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. But then there was the phone. At first, it was just texting more often. It became texting constantly. Her phone buzzed while we were watching TV, buzzed while we were eating dinner, buzzed while we were lying in bed. And every single time, she'd pick it up immediately. Being fussed, smiling sometimes, turning the screen away from me. You know that strange feeling you get in your stomach when something feels off? That quiet voice in the back of your mind whispering that something isn't right? At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was being insecure. I told myself I was overthinking. But over time, that voice got louder. I started noticing little things. She'd step into another room to answer texts. She started taking her phone everywhere, even the bathroom, even the shower. That was new. Before, she used to leave her phone on the nightstand all the time. Now it was practically glued to her hand. One night, I tried joking about it. Wow, I said, half laughing. Your phone's more important than I am these days. She rolled her eyes. Relax. It's just coworkers. That word stuck in my head. Coworkers. Because the way she smiled at that screen didn't feel like coworkers. And that's when the doubt started creeping in. Slowly, quietly, like a crack forming in glass. Every day, I told myself not to think about it. Every day, I failed. Because when someone you love starts acting like a stranger, you feel it. You feel the distance growing. And it hurts in a way that's hard to describe. It wasn't just suspicion. It was loneliness. We were in the same room, but somehow miles apart. And eventually, curiosity turned into something else. Something heavier. Something darker. The need to know the truth. No matter how painful it might be. I didn't want to snoop through her phone. I really didn't. That felt like crossing a line. But then one night, everything changed. It was a normal evening. She had just gotten home from work. We talked for maybe 10 minutes before she said she was going to take a shower. She tossed her phone on the bed and walked into the bathroom. I remember staring at that phone like it was some kind of ticking bomb. My heart was pounding. My brain kept telling me, don't do it. Don't be that guy. But then another thought crept in. If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to find, right? So slowly, I picked it up. My hands were shaking. And when I unlocked it, that's when my entire world fell apart. because right there, at the top of her messages, was a conversation with a man, a coworker, and the first message I saw said, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped. My chest tightened. I kept scrolling, and every message felt like a punch to the gut. Flirting, inside jokes, plans to meet again, and then, the worst message of all, "Don't worry, my wife has no idea." That's when I realized something. This wasn't just cheating. My wife was having an affair with a married man. And in that moment, standing there in the silence of our bedroom, listening to the sound of the shower running down the hall, I realized something else too. They thought they were getting away with it. And that's when a new thought entered my mind. Not confrontation, not forgiveness, revenge, but not the loud, screaming kind. No, something colder, something smarter. Because if they wanted to destroy my marriage, then I was going to make sure their world burned down too. And the best part? They had absolutely no idea what was coming. Living with a lie. That night, after reading those messages, I felt like I had stepped into someone else's life. I sat there on the edge of the bed, holding her phone while the shower ran in the bathroom. The sound of water hitting tile felt louder than usual, almost deafening, like the universe was giving me time to decide what kind of man I was going to be next. My hand was shaking. My heart was racing so fast it felt like it might explode out of my chest. Part of me wanted to storm into that bathroom immediately, throw the phone on the floor, scream, demand answers. But another part of me, a colder part, told me to wait. Because if I confronted her right then, she would lie. They always lie first. And if she lied, I would never know the full truth. So instead, I did something that might have been the hardest thing I've ever done. I kept reading, message after message, day after day of conversations, weeks, maybe months. Flirting turned into emotional confessions. Emotional confessions turned into secret meetups. Then eventually, they stopped hiding what they were doing. Tonight, after closing, same place as last time. God, I wish I could wake up next to you instead. Each message felt like someone driving a knife deeper in my chest. But I forced myself to keep reading. Because pain was temporary. Evidence was permanent. That's when I grabbed my tablet. Slowly, carefully, I started recording the screen as I scrolled through the messages. Every incriminating line, every plan they made, every disgusting little joke they shared about how clueless their spouses were, including me. One message in particular still burns in my memory. Her lover had written, "Your husband really has no idea, does he?" And my wife replied, "He's too trusting. Too trusting." I stared at that message for a long time. My stomach twisted. But at the same time, something strange happened inside my mind. The sadness started turning into anger. Cold, focused anger. Because suddenly I realized something. They weren't just cheating. They were mocking us. Me and his wife. They thought they were smarter than everyone. Sneakier. Untouchable. And that's when the seed of revenge started growing. Not loud revenge. Not violent revenge. Public revenge. But first, I had to play a role. Because when she stepped out of that shower 10 minutes later, I had to pretend I didn't know anything. And let me tell you, that might have been the hardest acting job of my life. She walked out in her pajamas, drying her hair with a towel. "Hey," she said casually. I placed the phone exactly where it had been. "Hey," she smiled at me. That same smile I had loved for 5 years. But now, it felt fake, like looking at a stranger wearing my wife's face. "Long day?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, that night we watched TV together. Sat on the couch, just like always." But inside my head, everything had changed. Every time her phone buzzed, I knew who it was. Every time she smiled at the screen, I knew why. And every second, my plan grew clearer. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying those messages over and over again. I imagined confronting them. Imagined the shock on their faces. Imagined the humiliation. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something important. If I wanted real revenge, it had to be done the right way. Carefully, publicly, and with undeniable proof. So the next morning, I went back through the messages again, recording everything, saving screenshots, documenting every detail, dates, times, conversations. It took almost 2 hours. But when I was finished, I had enough evidence to destroy both of their lives. The next step was figuring out how. And that's when I remembered something from their messages. They worked at the same retail store, the one my wife had worked at for years. Her lover worked there too, and so did his wife. 3 of them, all under the same roof, which meant something incredible. If I played this right, I could expose the entire affair in one moment. One devastating moment. The idea made my heart start pounding, but also made me nervous, because revenge plans always sound good in your head, until you actually try to pull them off. What if they denied everything? What if I messed up the evidence? What if I lost my nerve? For 2 days, I wrestled with those questions. Meanwhile, my wife continued acting like nothing was wrong, kissing me goodbye before work, texting me little heart emojis during the day, telling me she loved me. And every single time, it felt like poison. But I kept playing along, because the longer I waited, the bigger the explosion would be. Then on the 3rd day, I made the first move. I looked up the other man's wife on Facebook. Her profile picture showed a woman who looked kind, friendly, completely unaware that her husband was betraying her. Seeing that made my chest tighten, because she was a victim too, and she deserved the truth. So I sent her a message. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for almost a full minute before I finally typed. I know this might sound strange, but I need to talk to you about something important. Are you working today? A few minutes later, she replied, yes, I'm at the store. Why? My heart started pounding again. This was it. The moment everything would begin. I typed carefully. I need to stop by and tell you something about your husband and my wife. Please don't mention this to anyone yet. The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, she responded. Okay, I'm working the front counter today. That was all I needed to hear. My revenge plan had officially begun. I called my boss and told him I'd be late coming in. Then I grabbed my phone, made sure the recording function worked, and drove to the store. The entire drive there, my stomach was in knots. Part fear, part adrenaline, part rage. But as I pulled into the parking lot, something surprising happened. The fear faded, because I realized something very simple. They were the ones who should be afraid. They were the ones who destroyed 2 marriages. All I was doing was telling the truth. And sometimes, the truth is the most devastating weapon of all. I walked through the store doors and immediately spotted my wife near the clothing section. She looked up. Her face lit up with surprise. Hey, what are you doing here? I forced a smile. Oh, just needed to stop by for a minute. But inside, I was seconds away from dropping a nuclear bomb on their lives. And they still had absolutely no idea. The moment everything exploded, the moment I stepped into that store, my heart was pounding so hard I could practically hear it in my ears. Bright fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Shopping carts rattled across the tile floors. Customers walked past like it was just another normal afternoon. But for me, this place had suddenly become a battlefield, and nobody here knew a war was about to start. I adjusted my shirt slightly, making sure my phone camera was positioned inside my pocket just the way I had practiced earlier. Recording everything, because this moment needed to be permanent. Not just for me, for everyone. My wife was standing near a rack of clothing, folding shirts with one of her coworkers. When she saw me walking toward her, her face lit up with confusion. Hey, she said, what are you doing here? Her tone was cheerful, completely normal, like nothing in the world was wrong. And for a split second, that hurt more than the messages, because this woman standing in front of me was someone I used to trust with my entire life. I forced a smile. Oh, I just needed to talk to you for a second. She raised an eyebrow. Right now? Yeah, I said calmly. But first, I want to talk to someone else. Her expression changed slightly. Just a flicker, a tiny moment of confusion. But she shrugged and went back to folding clothes as I walked toward the front counter. And there she was, the other woman, the man's wife. She looked up when I approached. She recognized me immediately from my Facebook profile picture. Her expression was nervous, like she already sensed something was wrong. Hi, she said quietly. Eruplia. Can we talk somewhere private for a second? She hesitated, then nodded. We stepped slightly away from the counter, near a quiet aisle where fewer customers were walking by. I took a slow breath. This was the moment where 2 lives would change forever. I'm really sorry, I told her. Her face tightened immediately. Sorry for what? I pulled out my tablet, opened the screen recording, then handed it to her. Just watch this. At first, she looked confused. Then the messages started appearing, line after line, conversation after conversation, between my wife and her husband. I watched her face as the realization hit. Her eyes widened. Her mouth slowly fell open. Her hands started shaking. And then came the worst part, the silence. Because there's a moment when someone discovers betrayal where words stop working. Her breathing became uneven. Her eyes filled with tears, and she whispered something so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Oh my God, I felt a strange mix of emotions in that moment. Anger, sadness, but also validation. Because I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. Everything I suspected was real. She looked up at me with tears running down her face. How long? She asked. Months, I said quietly. She wiped her face with her sleeve. Then something changed in her expression. The sadness didn't disappear, but something else replaced it. Rage. Stay here, she said. Then she turned and walked quickly toward the back of the store, straight toward the clothing section, where my wife was standing. My pulse spiked, because I knew what was about to happen, and I followed her. Within seconds, she was standing directly in front of my wife. Hey, my wife said casually. Everything okay? The other woman didn't answer. She just held up the tablet, right in front of her face. Care to explain this? My wife's expression froze. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink. Then she looked at me, standing behind the woman, and that's when the color drained from her face. Wait, what is this? She stammered. The woman's voice rose. You know exactly what it is. Now, people were starting to notice. Customers slowed down. Coworkers looked over. The tension in the air was thick. My wife tried to grab the tablet, but the woman pulled it away. Don't touch it. My wife looked at me again, panic spreading across her face. You went through my phone? I didn't respond. Instead, I said the words I'd been waiting days to say. Why don't you explain to everyone what you and her husband have been doing? The entire store seemed to go quiet. My wife opened her mouth, closed it, then tried the oldest trick in the book, denial. I don't know what you're talking about. But the evidence was right there, scrolling on the screen. Every disgusting message, every lie, and everyone could see it. Customers, employees, managers. Then suddenly, another voice spoke. What's going on here? It was the store manager. He had walked over after hearing the commotion. The other woman turned toward him immediately. You might want to look at what your employees have been doing during work hours. She handed him a tablet. He watched the messages scroll across the screen, and his expression turned from confusion to pure disbelief. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. Meanwhile, my wife looked like she might faint. And then, the final piece of the puzzle arrived. The man himself, the co-worker, the husband. He walked around the corner toward the noise, and immediately froze when he saw everyone standing there, including his wife, including me. His face turned ghost white. What's going on? He asked nervously. His wife turned toward him slowly, holding up the tablet. Why don't you tell me? He looked at the screen, and I watched the exact moment his world collapsed. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The entire store was silent, watching, waiting, and that's when his wife said something I'll never forget. How long have you been sleeping with her? He didn't answer, but the silence was enough. My wife suddenly started crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. And just like that, the truth came out. The manager rubbed his temples. This is completely unacceptable, he said. Employees were whispering. Customers were staring. The humiliation was absolute. My wife was shaking. The guy looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something close to peace. Because the truth was finally out. But the story was far from over. Because what happened next destroyed far more than just their reputations. When the truth went nuclear. For a few seconds after the truth came out, nobody moved. The entire store felt frozen in time. Customers stood in the aisles pretending to browse while very obviously listening to every word. Employees whispered to each other behind shelves. And right in the middle of all of it stood the four people whose lives had just exploded. My wife, his wife, and me. The man just stared at the tablet in his wife's hands like it was some kind of cursed object. His face had gone pale. His mouth opened, then closed again. He looked like someone trying to wake up from a nightmare. But there was no waking up from this. His wife spoke first. Her voice was shaking, but there was steel in it now. How long? The man rubbed his face nervously. It wasn't like that. That was the wrong answer. Because the moment those words left his mouth, her expression changed. Oh, really? She snapped. She turned the tablet back toward him and scrolled through more of the messages. Because this looks exactly like that. The store manager sighed heavily. This is completely inappropriate behavior, he said. You two need to come to my office. Now. My wife started crying harder. I'm sorry, she whispered again. But at that point, those words meant nothing. The damage had already been done. The man's wife looked at him one last time. Then she said something that echoed through the entire store. We're done. Just 2 words. But they landed like a bomb. She placed the tablet back into my hands, wiped her face, and walked straight toward the employee locker room. Not to cry, not to hide, to grab her things. Because within minutes, she was walking out the front door of the store, quitting on the spot. The man tried to follow her. Wait, please. But she didn't even look back. Meanwhile, the manager turned toward my wife. You're suspended until further notice, he said coldly. Her shoulders collapsed, as if the weight of everything had finally crushed her. The man received a warning instead of being fired. Apparently, the manager didn't want to lose too many employees at once. But honestly, it didn't matter, because the real consequences hadn't even started yet. The manager eventually asked everyone else to get back to work. Customers slowly returned to their shopping. The commotion died down, but the whispers didn't stop, because news like that spreads faster than wildfire. I walked out of the store shortly after. My wife tried to follow me. Please, we need to talk. I didn't even turn around, because I'd already heard everything I needed to hear. That night, she came home, and for the first time since our marriage began, we sat across from each other in complete silence. No TV, no phones, just the truth sitting between us. Finally, she spoke. I never meant for it to go this far. I laughed quietly. You never mean for cheating to go far? Tears rolled down her face. It was a mistake. I shook my head slowly. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did took planning, took lies, took months of deception. And she knew it. She didn't argue. Instead, she just cried. And that night, our marriage officially ended. But I still had one final step left in my revenge. Because exposing them at work wasn't enough. They had mocked us, laughed behind our backs. They thought they were smarter than everyone. So I decided to show the world exactly who they were. Over the next few days, I edited the recordings, the screen captures of their messages, the confrontation in the store, everything. I blurred the faces of innocent people, but I left 2 faces perfectly clear, my wife and her lover. Then I uploaded the video online. At first, nothing happened. A few views, a few comments. But then something strange happened. Someone shared it, then someone else. And within days, the video exploded. Thousands of views, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. People were shocked, angry, disgusted. Comments flooded in from strangers all over the internet. Some supported me, some criticized me, but almost everyone agreed on one thing. The truth had finally been exposed. My wife's friends saw the video. Her family saw it. His friends saw it. His family saw it. And just like that, their secret affair wasn't secret anymore. It was public history. The fallout was brutal. My wife lost more than just her job. She lost friendships, trust, reputation. The man's marriage collapsed completely. His wife filed for divorce almost immediately. As for my own marriage, the divorce process was long, messy, emotionally exhausting. But eventually, it was over. 5 years of marriage reduced to legal paperwork and signatures. The woman I once thought I'd grow old with became a stranger. And after that, I never saw her again. As for her lover, I never saw him again either. Last I heard, he moved to another city, probably hoping to escape the embarrassment. But the internet never forgets. Months passed, then a year, and eventually, the anger faded, the pain faded. Life slowly moved forward again. Looking back now, people sometimes ask me if I regret what I did. Uploading the video, exposing them publicly, destroying 2 marriages. But the truth is, no, I don't regret it. Because betrayal has consequences. And sometimes, the truth is the only justice you get. If there's one thing I learned from this entire nightmare, it's this: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong in a relationship, don't ignore it. Don't bury it. Because sometimes, that quiet voice in the back of your mind is trying to protect you. And sometimes, listening to it can change your life. For better or worse. But at least it will be the truth. Betrayal changes people. It forces you to see the world differently. It teaches you that trust is fragile, but also teaches you something powerful. That even after the worst heartbreak, you can rebuild. You can start over. You can move forward. And sometimes, walking away from the wrong person is the first step toward finding the right life. If you made it to the end of this story, let me ask you something. Do you think the revenge went too far? Or do you think he did exactly what needed to be done? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy intense stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Because sometimes, the truth is stranger than fiction.